Hello, welcome to the Coffee Yarn and Dinosaurs podcast. This is a podcast where I talk about my knitting, crocheting, Tunisian crocheting, spinning, yarn dyeing, as many fiber arts things as I can possibly get my hands on. My name is Ruth. I am the designer behind Ruth Brasch Designs, previously known as Everyday Yarn Works, and the yarn dyer behind Fearless Feet Fiber Company. It has been a while since I've done any kind of introduction. And obviously I'm slipping up a little bit. We might edit that out. So I'm very, very excited to be back podcasting with you guys. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and it's a beautiful fake spring day. It's not spring. Today is February 12th. And in Pennsylvania, we sort of get this fake spring where you get real hopeful for a second, and it's warm and it's sunshiny, it's bright, and then the weather's like, ha, snow. No spring for you. Okay, so we're in a fake spring day, spring number 1 in February, and I thought it would be fun to sit down and chat with you guys a little bit about what I've been doing for the past couple months since I've recorded a podcast. So I don't have too many finished objects to show you. If you would like to see some of the ones that I've been working on, there's a bunch of new designs that just came out, but the prototype samples are with the yarn dyers. So I'm going to cut in a couple pictures so you can see. I just put out my Agua Dolce shawl with Lola Bean Yarn Co. And that sample is with her. So if you happen to see Adela at a show and you see my shawl, you know, take a picture with it, give it a little pet or something, but it lives with Adela now. And I also published my Judah shawl, which that yarn is Sugar Plum Circus Merino Sport. It's so soft and squishy, and I will talk more about that later. But that shawl actually just got sent off to Jensen with Sugar Plum Circus. So if you are on the West Coast, I'm trying to think. I think she's taking it to Vogue in Seattle. I think that's where she's taking it to. So if you happen to be going to VKL in Washington, go see my Judah shawl and go say hi to Jensen from Sugar Plum Circus, because I will be here in Pennsylvania. I will not be in Washington, but my shawl will be. Yay! So those are two of my biggest finished objects. I have been working very, very hard this year to be more monogamous with my knitting or crocheting, because I have sort of limited time crafting, right? I have 3 little kids, for those of you who don't know. I'm talking to you like you're the people who have watched in the past, but just in case you happen to have found this podcast and I'm just straight on rambling right now. Hi, this is sort of standard. I have 3 kids. I live in central Pennsylvania, and I try to do all the fiber arts things, but I have limited time. So my time has gotten more limited because my eldest just started kindergarten. So now my mornings are much earlier, and there's driving in the middle of the day, and there's who knew there was so much involved in having a kid in kindergarten. What? Like, silly me. Here I thought, like, you send your kid, this is total tangent. I'll be done in a second. It won't be long. Who knew that I thought you just send your kid to kindergarten, like kid goes to school, kid learns thing, kid comes home, hi mommy, I learned thing. No. You get phone calls from the school, you get emails from, I don't mean necessarily even bad ones, but like all the emails from the school, hey, we're having this event, hey, we're having that event. And I'm like, do you want to join the mom's something or another? And I'm like, this child is 6. We do not need to be going to these like high school football games. Don't tell me about it. I don't want to know. It's ridiculous. Okay, so anyway, I should talk about yarn because the little one just came in and started talking to me. And just for the record, I can see them. They're just in the other room. They're in the living room. I'm in the dining room, and there's a glass door between us. So I can see them, but they're not in here and you can't hear them. Other great. Things I have finished. So, I got a circular knitting machine. So check it out. I got the AliExpress King Turbo King. I don't know. There's a lot of words. It's the big AliExpress that makes adult-sized hats. So it makes this really, really big tube, And part of the reason I got it is because I wanted to be able to crank, okay, this is good, I can show you. I buy yarn on cones, right? Yarn to dye. So I wanted to be able to crank with the machine long tubes so I can dye gradient skeins of yarn. And it's possible. It takes a very long time. So I also got, I can't find it. It's up there. I have stuff stored up there. I also got an adapter for the machine, so you can basically just attach a drill and pull the trigger. It's great. So anyway, I was practicing with it on these hats. And so what I did with these hats, I'm trying to find my scrappy cakes. I've got all this stuff behind me because I want to show you. Yes, excellent. Hang on. It'll be cooler if I show you the big ones. Be right back. Okay, so I have these big scrappy cakes that I wound up. And these are basically all of my sock yarn scraps, just from whether it was from making shawls or from making socks or whatever, anything sock weight that's machine washable. So I intentionally did not put the non-superwash stuff in here. This is all superwash. And I just wound it into a big cake. And when I got from one color to the other, I tied a knot with a long tail. So that way I could either cut it out or I could sort of just knit it in and just leave the tail be, right? So for the circular sock machine, I took 2 of these cakes. They're mostly used up. And I pulled from the inside and the outside of both cakes. So that's 4 strands of fingering weight yarn. And I cranked them through the machine. And I cranked them long enough that they could be, put that down here. I cranked them long enough so that they could be double thick hat. So I basically cranked a big long tube, cinched this end, cinched that end, and stuffed one end inside the other and connected them. So let me show you what that looks like. So you can see up at the top, this is just a cinched up tube, right? And it all looks super cool and variegated and color changing because this is just scraps. It's 4 strands of scrap yarn held together. But then, oh, surprise, look, there, it's like a totally, see, there's one of the ends that I still have to tuck in. It's like a totally different hat. And I'm so excited. So let me show you, I'm gonna look real silly for a second, but let me show you how it fits. It took a little trial and error, but I finally figured out how many rounds I needed to crank for this to fit my head like a beanie, okay? So you see how it's sort of like it's tight onto my head. It's not slouchy at all, but it covers my ears. And that's really important because I usually have to wear a men's sized hat. I have a 23.5-inch head. It's big. Which, you know, we deal with it, which is part of the reason why I started knitting my own hats, because women's hats from a store, they just don't fit me. I look ridiculous. So this one's the right length. These look the same. This one's the right length. And then let me dig in my handy dandy drawer of stuff. Okay, this was one of my earlier ones. You see how much longer this is? It's kind of ridiculous. So this one would be like a slouchy hat, right? But because my head is really big, it doesn't really slouch very well. So it's kind of like you could fold the brim up and make like a watch cap, I guess is what they're called. So either way, it works really nicely and I'm pleased with it. So something else I tried knitting with the sock machine was one of these, you know how you see these weird little like gathered headbands all over Instagram? I kind of wondered if they were functional or if they were just like, this is all you can make with a circular sock knitting machine. Like, is this all we can make? I don't know. But so this is one strand of Lion brand Heartland. I really like the color. I don't remember what it is. I'll have to put it in when I'm editing. But keep in mind, I am not a headband type of girl. But it's not bad, right? Like for an ear warmer, it's not bad. I don't know that I would necessarily, actually, I wonder if we could tuck this underneath. That's a little weird. Okay, anyway, You get the point. This is me practicing with yarn that I have in stash, trying to figure out what in the world am I going to do with this circular sock machine. I am pretty pleased with this. I think this would be good for if I have a ponytail in. So like if I'm going out, I don't know, shoveling snow or something, or going to take the kids on a walk. My ears get really, really cold. I got ear infections a lot as a kid. And also when you have all this metal in your ears and it gets super duper cold, like below freezing, your ears get cold, and my ears actually get very painful in the winter when I'm outside in the cold. So something like this, or something like the watch cap that has that double, or in this case, quadruple thickness on the brim, is extremely helpful for someone like me who needs those extra layers. Yarn in my mouth. Occupational hazard. For someone like me who needs the extra thickness. So what am I planning to do with all of these hats? Well, that is another one of the reasons why I got the circular knitting machine in the first place. I have, at this current point in time, over 45 nieces and nephews. I had to count, I had to remember the number. Over 45 nieces and nephews. And a couple of years ago, when there was more like 25 to 30, I knitted either hats or fingerless gloves or things like that for all of them. I was working with my mother-in-law, and we sort of, you know, like collaborated, and she bought the supplies and I did the making type of thing, and it was a gift from both of us. And some of the kids have asked, so they're all the way from newborn up to maybe like 22, maybe even 23 for the oldest. So there's a huge range, and there's a lot of them. And so this hat machine is one of the ways that I am solving my handmade gifts for Christmas thing, because I would very much like to be able to make a hat or a scarf or a whatever for every single kid. But even if I spent the entire year doing it, I don't know that I would finish, because it's a lot, and it's a lot of kids, and I'm trying to design stuff and dye stuff and knit stuff for me and knit stuff for my kids, blah, blah, blah. So, knitting machine, ta-da! And I figured, you know, not every single kid wants or cares about a hand knit thing. So my grand and glorious plan is to machine knit about 45 of these things in various sizes. I might hand knit or crochet some stuff for like the little kids, the little ones, just because this machine is too big to make anything small child sized. And then I'm going to stick them all in a bucket. And if anybody wants to take one, they can. Merry Christmas to you. And if they don't want to, they don't have to. And it'll either just carry over till next year, or I can donate to a local homeless shelter or charity, you know, whatever. There's plenty of things you can do. So that will help me with my stash. And it will also be fun to make Christmas gifts. So that's my plan. You will probably see more hand knit hats, not hand knit, machine knit hats this year. You'll probably see a lot of them. Okay, so next finished object that I have, I'm very, very excited about, are these socks. Ha! Check this out. I should have gotten my little fake foot, but I'm going to stick these on my hand so you can see the full pattern. Look at that. So this yarn is at Haynes House Yarn. That's not her Instagram handle. There's actually an at Haynes House Yarn. Haynesville sock or Haynesville fingering. I'm not sure which one it is. And the colorway is Naruto, the hidden stone. And I just, as soon as I heard the colorway, all I could think about was the kids and people that do the ninja run, right? They do the Naruto run all over the place with the arms. You can't see me, you know, the ninja run. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna design ninja run socks. So if you look at it like this, it looks like a person, like here's the person and there's the ninja run arms. So these are ninja run socks, and they are coming out tomorrow night, which is Thursday, February 13th, 2020. They are toe up with a fleagle heel, which is awesome. If you don't know what a fleagle heel is, It's super duper snazzy. It can be worked either toe up or top down with the same instructions. Yeah, with the same instructions. And basically what you do is it's a gusset, but then you turn and decrease. So instead of doing the wrap and turn back and forth that people hate for a top down heel flap, or instead of doing a short row heel where you can't, like for a toe up sock, a short row heel where you don't have that extra gusset space, you have the gusset space right here, right? There's the gusset. But then if you look at the heel turn, there's no wrapping. It's just decreases, which is awesome. So this will be coming out as part of the Lots of Socks knit along. Lisa Ross from Paper Daisy Creations is hosting a sort of a charity sock knit along, and it benefits the organization Down Syndrome International. One of their stated goals that I really like really quick is to encourage people with Down syndrome to advocate for themselves. And I think that is super fantastic. They also focus on giving this support to people with Down syndrome in countries where there may not be as much support for them. So they teach these people they just do a wonderful job. They help them advocate for themselves, because people with Down syndrome, people with any disability, right? They are living with the disability and they have the right to speak for themselves. But sometimes you have to teach people how to self-advocate. Sometimes you have to teach neurotypical people how to self-advocate, by the way, or parents, neurotypical parents, you have to teach them how to advocate for their children sometimes. So self-advocacy in general is great. So part of the reason why I really, really like this event and promoting self-advocacy is I have a brother with autism, which is not Down syndrome, but I have seen the importance of self-advocacy in his life. So I think it's really, really fantastic that there's a group promoting this. And so I want to support that. So on the 14th, on Valentine's Day, this was not intended as a Valentine's Day pattern. I realized I guess it kind of sort of could look like hearts. It's not really intended to. This will be coming out and it will be 50% off with the coupon code Lots of Socks in all capital letters. And all of the proceeds from my sales that day will go to Down Syndrome International. So if you want to support that, if you want to come knit socks, there's prizes because it's a knit along, and some of the prizes are my hand-dyed yarn. So yay. So I'm really excited about these Ninja Run socks. And am I still recording? I'm still recording. Hey. So that's pretty much it for what I have finished right now, because as I said, the other stuff that has been finished is off with the yarn dyers. Okay, so I also don't have too many works in progress. So I am participating in Rachie Newen's Stash Goals 2020, which isn't really so much a big event as it just is, let's all work together to have our yarn stash where we're happy with it. If your stash is small and you want to do more buying this year, excellent. If your stash is large and one of your goals is to work up your stash this year, excellent. If you're like, I'm really happy with where it is and I just want to make sure that my buying and using are like sort of staying the same at the same level, super cool. You set your own goals, you do your own thing. But in preparing for that, at the end of December, I realized that one of the things I really did not like is having tons and tons of project bags lying around. And it's not the project bags themselves, but I found that when I have lots of projects on the go, which I have for probably at least the past 5 to 6 years, it feels overwhelming and oppressive to me because I feel like there's all of these unfinished tasks hanging over me. So what I did is I went through my project bags. I frogged a lot of them, to be honest. I rewound them, or I think I had them down to about 8. And I decided that one of my stash goals for this year is to work down the old projects so that anything started prior to 2020, by the end of 2020, it will be finished or frogged. No more old projects. And my secondary goal is to only have no more than 10 project bags on the go. And I noticed some of you, you're probably like, 10 project bags? Oh my gosh, I could never handle 10. Okay, listen, I had like 35. Okay, there was a lot because I was starting and I got into that like start-itis, you know, where you just want to start something new, you want to start something new, but you're never finishing anything. And to that end, also, the way it relates to stash goals is I was buying yarn. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with buying yarn, especially like if you're financially able to do it. But for me, because my knitting and crocheting time has decreased and I'm not finishing projects, instead of me using this nice stuff that I'm buying, it's basically just stacking up, okay? It's a stash. So I want to use a lot of my stash this year. I want to knit from stash or crochet from stash as much as I can. To that end, I present my next whip, which is, ooh, stuff is gonna fall over. So my next work in project is I am testing Knitatude's My Beginner Raglan LITE. So for those of you who don't know, Chantal from Knitatude specializes in sort of introductory beginner level patterns to help you get into doing things like knitting sweaters or knitting shawls especially. And it's really fantastic because she has, you've probably seen, I tested one of her circular yoke patterns. It's stockinette with eyelets. It's very, very pretty. This is just garter stitch in the round, but with this the cute little eyelets at the raglan seam. As I was saying, it has these cute little eyelet details on the raglan seam, and it's just very basic and easy, which is fantastic. It's a nice, relaxing project, and I am using up a sweater quantity's worth of Malabrigo Rios in the lettuce colorway. So it is super duper duper, like, can you see the squish? I feel like you can probably even see the squish on camera. It is so squishy. And that's part of why I volunteered for the test. This is a big gauge. I'm using a US 10 needle, which is a 6mm. And this 6mm with Malabrigo Rios, it just is gonna, it's gonna be so drapey and so squishy. And I just wanna like snuggle up in it and wear it. Also, I really enjoy test knitting for Chantal. She's a nice designer to test knit for. I enjoy her. She's very encouraging. And she's very supportive and encouraging of her testers. She has high expectations, but that's not a bad thing. So that's my first work in progress. My second one is I am crocheting a temperature blanket. I feel like probably everybody in the crochet world has heard of a temperature blanket before now, but just in case you haven't, a really quick recap. A temperature blanket is, excuse me. A temperature blanket is when you crochet one row every day of the year. So you assign colors for temperature levels, right? In my case, I made a little ring of bobbins and labeled them, okay? So, for example, this one is less than 5 degrees. Everything's in Fahrenheit. This one's less than 5 degrees. This one is 6 degrees to 13 degrees, 14 to 21, and so on and so forth, all the way up to over 100 degrees, which I will probably hit during the summer. So I just have this snapped onto a basket that I got from either Michael's or Joann's, right? So I have this just hanging off the side. so I know which color to work for each day. And I go on my local weather app, and for me, I'm crocheting based off of the high temperature for that day. Probably it would have been more efficient in retrospect to do the average temperature, not the high or the low, because right now I have a couple portions where I have like the high was 40 degrees for a week in a row, and so this is my low to mid 40s color. But it'll change, and that's part of the cool part of doing this. So this is a really big, let me take the crochet hook out. This is a really big blanket. This is doubled up. I'm 5.5 feet tall. And so you could see like this is going to be a really, really big blanket, but that's okay because that's what I was shooting for, because you have to crochet 366, it's leap year. You have to crochet 366 rows. I'm doing linen stitch in worsted weight. So this is going to be a really tall blanket, and I've seen a lot of people that did not start them wide enough, and they ended up with these like narrow but very tall, it almost looked like a table runner, and I did not want that. I would rather just have a really, really big blanket at the end of the year. So temperature blanket, I will try to be doing updates for that every time I podcast, hopefully, to try to keep myself on track. Right now, I'm tracking with a calendar, a little printed out calendar. I'm still in January, and you can see I've only crocheted up through January 22nd, which is, it's getting close to a month behind. So I need to start catching up on this. Thank you, baby girl. Glasses. So I need to start catching up on this so I can actually finish the project and not end up being like 100 rows behind, which would be ridiculous. So, temperature blanket, ta-da! This is just a brief interlude where I was showing you my progress spinning on a Turkish drop spindle, showing you a little bit of how I draft the fiber, how I have to let it drop and spin and all of that. I don't have any sound on in the background because my 2-year-old was banging the door open and shut, and you don't want to hear that. You would just rather watch the spindle spin. Essentially, my goal in showing you this is so you can see how one spins on a Turkish drop spindle, because I just find it fascinating to watch different styles of spinning. It also happens that I am extremely slow at winding the spun fiber onto the drop spindle itself, because I cannot seem to get the shaft of the spindle on tightly enough that I can actually hold on to the shaft of the spindle and wind the spun fiber on. It's something I'm working on. I'm sure there is a specific technique for doing this, but you can see from looking at my face that I have not mastered this technique at all in any way, shape, or form. In the future, what am I planning in the future? So I am planning a sock design with this. I'm very, very excited for this. This is going to be a cable knit sock pattern, and this is Fearless Feet Fiber Company soft sock in the Squash Blossom colorway. So this is my yarn in Squash Blossom. And I'm also planning a pair of socks with this. So this is Fearless Feet Fiber Company also, my yarn. Super Sheepy, the 100% Superwash Merino. And this is sort of my chocolate colorway, but I accidentally like got some red in there. So it's sort of a reddish brown instead of chocolate is a slightly more yellowy. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah, here's chocolate. Okay, you see how this one's a little bit more yellowy? And the one I'm using right here is gonna be a little bit redder. So when you dye, sometimes they the colors strike a little bit differently, or maybe I messed up the ratio a little bit or something like that. So, but that's okay, because you know why? Because I really like this. And so it came home to live with me. Came home to live with me. It crossed my dining room. This is my mostly like yarn dyeing, yarn that I'm going to be dyeing. Not going to be dyeing. Let's start that again. This is my business stock. This is the yarn that is listed online. This is personal stash because it has overflowed from across the room where the rest of the stash is. So those two I'm excited for. This is some really pretty Kim Dyes yarn that I am going to be knitting up into a shawl, a new shawl design, because, so this is the slubby yarn, right, that people keep talking about. They talk about slubby yarn, it's kind of new, you see people using it, but over and over I kept hearing again at Vogue in New York, I don't know what to do with slub yarn. So I was like, well, I know what I want to do with slub yarn, so I'm going to make a pattern with it. I'm going to do a design with it. So hopefully you guys will see a pattern coming out soon for a shawl with Kim's slubby yarn. And this is her flan fingering. So this is, I want to say merino and silk singles. It's just super duper pretty. So that I'm excited to work with. Ooh, I got some Paton's Kroy in the flax colorway because I want to try to knit sport weight socks. And I've heard of sport weight socks, but I did not want 100% superwash merino because, you know, superwash merino is got no nylon and it's very soft and all of that. So I'm going to try Paton's Kroy for sport weight socks in the hopes that it will be more sturdy. Yeah, see, this is part of my stash goals thing, right? So I don't necessarily, like, last year, I would have had all of these started already. I would have cast on the projects. I would have been super duper excited and working on like 17 projects. But now I'm working on maybe 2 or 3, and I'm basically just holding up yarn to show you. So this is going to be sport weight socks. Ooh. Okay, Sugar Plum Circus. This is Sugar Plum Circus Merino Sport. Okay, look at these colors together. I'm going to see if I can hold them all up. Look at all of these together. I think I want to make them into a sweater. Look, how much fun would that be, right? So you've got Julep, So Royal, Macaroon, So Royal, and Melon Mambo. And I think all of these, like, maybe I will stripe them. Maybe they will be mosaic. Maybe, I don't know, but it's gonna be so much fun. So that's basically what I'm up to. There's still, low battery. Low battery. Okay, so that's basically what I'm up to right now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me with my little tangents and all that. Let me know if you like podcasts. There's some video tutorials coming soon. Just drop in and say hi. I'm super duper happy to be back to podcasting. I'm really, really happy just to be able to sit and chat with you guys, and I hope that you enjoyed it too. So if you enjoyed it, please just drop me a comment, tell me hi, and be like, hey, I watched your podcast, and then I can know people are actually watching. You could also give it a thumbs up if you feel like it, if you liked it. And if you feel like you want to subscribe, that's cool. Basically what that'll do is, like, if you subscribe and hit the bell, you'll get a notification like, hey, Ruth put up another video. Hey. Which is cool. And if not, that's cool too. I hope you enjoyed it either way. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.